So before I go for all of the head topology stuff, I thought I'd take you through what topology actually is. So on the left we can see that we've got just a sheet of vertices here. It's just plain old regular sheet of quads. And this can be expanded from the top, the left, the bottom and the right, and can wrap around anything, so you can also make it into a loop. You can just expand it everywhere. And this is what you would use to make just a well, we'll get onto it in a bit, but it's like the default put this here to fill in space kind of thing. Now the next two are what are called poles, and what it is when you have a sheet, so this being a sheet here, and you want to connect it to two other sheets. So if you were to do this, this would result in only quads, and also have loops carrying across in every direction. So this is a very good method of joining your sheets together. So even if I were to add a cube and then subdivide it, we can see that there are that exact same pattern there, and that's a good pattern for topology when focusing on getting a corner to intersect. This is another one. It's like the same one before, but only two more sheets can be added. So if you have a selection where multiple sheets will intersect, then this is probably a good one to use. It doesn't have lines going all the way through it, but it's got pretty good loop support in most all directions, and you're still only using quads, which is great for deformation. So to get onto the head topology. So this is a head I'm using from the Manuel Bastioni add-on, which I'll link in the description. But what we're looking at is essentially three circles. So a face is always made up of three circles, the main ones being the mouth and the two eyes. And if we analyze it on the perspective of three circles, we can see that this just radiates outwards. You can see that if I hide this and this, we can see that this is literally just a donut of verts, just going inwards to form the eye hole. It gets a bit more interesting here, but this is incredibly real and accurate mesh. So you can see here a usage of a pole to intersect three sheets. So we have the sheet here, which is the one coming over to follow the brow. We have the sheet coming over from the side of the head here, so this sheet, and it's all coming down and around. You can see the sheet from the jawbone coming up here, and you can even see that over here we have an intersection of 5, which forms another pole here, and that falls right about where the cheek would be. So when modelling a face, you need to try and make it so you map out where all the poles should be when they're on intersections of gathering verts. So in the cheek, for example, a lot of flesh would be moving up to go to the cheek. This would deform quite well, as in all of the sheets could gather and scrunch up, and it doesn't give any odd deformations in any way. The mouth also radiates out, so it's a bit more interesting when you have the nose in. So what the nose is it's more or less just the intersection of these loops. So if I highlight them here again, where they intersect would be around here without the nose. But if we see this as three loops combining, we can see that if you were to merge these and then have to join them up with here, you'd eventually get what you have here. So when putting the nose on, you just want to have it curl up and go around these three holes, just to try, or these three loops, just to try and get it to look as best you can. Expanding on the mouth a bit, this one has loops going all the way inside the mouth. Some examples I'll explain that's not always the case. But with this, you can see that the loops just continue radiating outwards, and they just come to cross the nose as well. So they follow these lines just to give it the best deformation. Because if you'd imagine, a mouth would be smirking or smiling or changing a lot, and this topology gives it the best range of movement. You can see that when this loops finally stop, it gets to the jaw, which is here, and as you can see, the sheet from the mouth here, these two, meets the sheet from the bottom of the neck, meets the sheet from the side of the face curling around to the head. And you can even see here that the ear's been plopped on. So if I go back to the topology example, the ear would be more like something like this. So you just expand it out, pull this along, pull this up, and all of this just continuing with the verts being quads. You do not need to put in any tris anywhere. The Manuel Bastioni head seems to even obsessively avoid triangles where it can, like even inside the nose it just completely puts it a quad, even though it doesn't even need to be there. So this something no one would ever even see. It's not even textured, and it's just there. You could easily put a triangle, but even it works to its detriment, even because this loop is appalling, really. You don't want to have it going inside and then outside the nose. But anyway, that's just preference, really. The head loops always just go right down to the back. They don't need to. I've seen some loops just end at the neck, and then it just pinches it. So a pinching would be like this, where it just stops the loop as it gets there, so that you can add more detail to the back if you want to. But well, that's just something else for another day. We're just focusing on the heads. So that's just the almost ideal human realistic head. So let's go on to another example. So this is from Overwatch. I've ripped the model, and then I've done my best to fix the topology, as in I've just done tris to quads. You can see here that it follows the same patterns. You've got the loop for the mouth, you've got it radiating outwards, you've got it meeting and going across the bridge of the nose, you've got the nose being its own loop here and just carrying down and joining with it there. There's a bunch of tris here, but we could also see that that's just an artifact of having the tris to quads not fully functional. But in a case like this, I don't think I can see a way that you could have this without adding any tris, because there's just not the verts available. But even so, it's not really noticeable. I feel like they would have put that in just to give it some better face deformation. So it's just to scrunch up the lip a bit more. You want to have a lot of vertices around your mouth, because that's going to be the focus of all of the mouth movement. You want to also make sure that your eyes are following the form of the face. So the brow over here becomes its own loop, so it follows down here, down to the face. You can see that the poles are in the exact same position as well. So this is just another company completely, another person, just for artistic styles, but all of these poles will be in roughly the same place. You've got the cheek there, and you've got the bottom jawline here. You've got another pole there. I'm not sure if that one, the Manuel Bastioni had one. No, it doesn't have one on the jawline, but a lot of these will be very similar across multiple things, and it's just a very good place to have them, and they work well there, because you'll have most things moving to this point or coming away from this point, like this pivotal point here where the jaw would actually move. So if I try to move that, the pole just works really well for it. You want to just make sure they all align where they can. I'll put in some examples in the description as well. Those are just all artifacts of converting tries to quads. So here we also have another model. So this is a different game entirely. It's from Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. It's Frank West, and I haven't done any of the tries to quads yet just to show you how it works. So it's Alt J, and you can change the angles here. I think I'll leave it about there. Now this is a bit more messy on comparison, but even still, you can still follow the same vertices, loops array around. The eyes all have the rings and loops intersecting. This nose is quite large and interestingly shaped. It's quite pronounced, so a lot of geometry would be pushed out of the way to make that and fit it in. But you can still see that there's going to be poles and places that you think they should be. So the jaw, the chin. Obviously this is a game model, so a lot of optimization will be made to just make it move with the least verts and make it better. Stuff like this would be the product of that as well. The head doesn't exist, but we can still see that brows will be roughly the same loops in the same places. You've got areas of higher density vertices so that it can pinch and express more. The face will generally have more polys than most of the rest of the model entirely, and there's just a high density of loops that all intersect at the mouth, because that's usually where you stem from. When making a model, I usually try to start from the mouth and radiate outwards, and then just follow the amount of verts it creates, because the vertices on the face will determine the amount of vertices on the rest of the head, and then therefore go down from the neck. And that's if you're retopologizing or just box modeling from the start. So now that we've had a look at all of these different methods and reasoning behind them, I'm going to try and apply these to a model I made ages ago and see if I can improve it or change it, or just review it in general. So this is a head I made. I didn't have a lot of care for the topology about it. I just sort of did it because I wanted to. Now, right here we can already see that I've got two poles touching. Now this is arguably not very great. It sort of works, but you could even see there's a bit of a dip in creasing in the faces. It's just I've made this face too large and this face too small. I've just tried to connect it up, and it's not a very good method for that either. So let's see if I can fix this. I'll just add a loop there. Yeah, ideally this all stems from here as well. I've just put on a quad here because I wanted to, instead of just putting a triangle. I think a triangle would have worked better there as well. But yeah, the 5-way pole works here, I think. But I just needed a better way of connecting it to this area. Yeah, if I get rid of these. Because I think, because I didn't let the mouth dictate the amount of vertices that are needed in the face, it came across a bit wrong. So if I do this now, I need to edge split it again so that I can get the mouth looking right. And then join these up. And now it's a bit better. It's given the cheek back its flare. but you get the idea. If I move on to here, that ideally should be a bit further down here, I think. To do that, I'd probably move the vertices down a bit. Try and get a face here that creates that pole, and then I think I'll merge that to there. It's usually a nice problem-solving thing, this. Yeah, it creates another pole there. Yeah. It's not ideal. Usually I'd probably rework this entirely so that these loops all went up together, so they went across the face. So like this loop here would, and then stuff like that. Yeah, it takes a lot of reworking this, but we're just learning from it now. If I go to the head, I didn't see any examples of it on the other models because the other models didn't have heads, but here I think putting a pole here and a pole here works quite well. It's as if you were to have a box generated here where you could see the corners of the head. I think it helps with the brow. I think it helps with just getting these to flow down the back. I've pinched it here as well. I think it's because this character had clothes on its back, so I didn't even want to have that many vertices there. The nose is pinched there as well. The eyes are alright. They've got a loop going around. I did put in a corner quite sharply in there, but I think that worked for the character's head shape. Yeah, there's a loop going all around there. If I go back to the original, yeah, this just had radiating vertices all going down the back, all stemming from the ear, which I think probably a better way to do it. There's another pole. You could get this add-on yourself and just play a game of find the pole. Yeah, that's about all I have to say about it, I think. Learn from my mistakes, people.